Welcome to the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Greg, joined today by my co-host, Dave, who may have a Michael Jordan flu game situation on our hands today. Dave, how are you feeling, first of all?
I'm all right, but that just means this is going to be my best podcast episode yet.
You've always been someone to lock in when needed, and I expect that from you today as you fight the sniffles on the pod. But hey, we have a big week 4 to recap here in the NFL world. We've got the MLB playoffs starting today. We've got golf back on the schedule after the Ryder Cup. Things are good in the world of sports betting, and we are here to help you guide your way through all of it. We're going to begin today's show with our week 4 recap. Let's get right to it.
The week that was.
A week that was riddled by injury in the NFL this week, Dave. Sad to see. There will certainly be implications for fantasy lineups and bettors alike. What did you learn?
Yeah, well, Malik Neighbors unfortunately out for a season with the torn ACL. It's a bummer. Almost feels like at this point it's just kind of like a when will it happen for some of these young superstar talents. He's got the very young nature of his age on his side. I think he's only going to be 23, but I do think the comeback from these injuries can sometimes be overlooked because it's become a lot faster these days. But yeah, bummer hit. We'll talk about the fantasy fallout for that, betting fallout for that this week, next episode. Tyreek Hill also out for the season, dislocated knee, had a hamstring injury for Lamar Jackson, possibly severity unknown, but there's some questions there, which isn't great. Chargers took another hit on their line with Joe Alt, I think high ankle sprain, so probably not for the season like Rashawn Slater, which is good, but that pretty much directly led to that early season trap game loss by the Chargers against the Giants. And then some pretty big upset losses. Chargers and Ravens both go down. Colts, 49ers, and the Bucks all joined the Chargers as 3-0 teams that lost. So the door looks open in the AFC West maybe for the Chiefs, and we've been talking about that a bit, but all of a sudden that's a little closer, and the NFC West is getting more open with the Seahawks, Rams, and Niners now all 3-1. So 3-1. So some pretty good stuff there. Like I said, we'll discuss the fallout on this week's episodes a little bit today, a little bit on Thursday in our week 5 preview. But Greg, I have a burning question I have to ask you.
Oh boy.
Should we have ties in the NFL regular season?
It's been a hot button issue. I understand why it's controversial. It feels like there's been quite a few rule controversies in sports with the Ryder Cup envelope rule into NFL ties this week. But my gut says, yeah, the rule should stay what it is. We can have ties. I think it's on the teams to play a little less cowardly. Like, I'm looking at Green Bay, and I get it. I'm a rival fan here. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, as referenced previously on the show. But when they trotted out the field goal unit on a 4th and 3 with 30 seconds left in the ball game where they were one play away from winning against the Dallas Cowboys secondary, to fall a half game behind Detroit for first place in that division, theoretically giving Detroit a huge advantage if they finish the season with the same record here, a half game up. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was giddy. I know my head coach would just never do that. I think there's quite a few head coaches in sports that wouldn't do that. So, look, I'm fine with the rule. I would not be fine as a fan of a team that wanted to settle for a tie in week 4.
Yeah, I think Matt Eberflus might have been doing some weird, magic spell casting from the other sideline onto the Packers to assist in that horrible clock management at the end of the game. I mean, I was watching that play and I was like, they're going to make this 1 second take longer. That thing should have hit 0, man. Like, we're talking 0.2 seconds probably from that thing ticking all the way down. Personally, I'm fine with it. I like it. I think there's some cool, interesting alternatives, like the penalty kickoff or something like that, mimicking college rules. You certainly aren't going to go NBA style or baseball with repeated periods. Just injuries alone would negate that. But I'm fine with it. I like the chaos it brings into the end of season standings. That half game difference now that just shakes up how someone can get in via the wild card. It's fun. It's the regular season. It's obviously never going to happen in the playoffs. So what are we Why are we taking away a tie? Like, it was still a sick game. I take it as 3/4 of a win for the Cowboys, given I expected nothing from them in that game. So I'm cool with it. Yeah, it's a hot topic, but it'll fade away by next week.
Also, let's be real, for the Micah Parsons returns to Dallas game, I think it was deserved for him and Dak Prescott to end destined in a split heat. I mean, credit to Dak. Dak was incredible. And after the game, Micah told him as such.
Even Micah's sack was like at the line of scrimmage. It was a tie of a sack. There was no clear definitive either way of that. It was about as neutral as something could have gone in that scenario. So I think we're pretty aligned there. Keep the tie.
It was funny to watch all these grown men, professional athletes, just look confused how to celebrate. Like, what's your expression supposed to be when you walk off to shake hands after a tie in the regular season? So I found it funny. If it started happening more, I might change my opinion. But one tie between Green Bay and Dallas is not going to shake the world of the NFL rule books. All right, I'm glad we're in alignment there. It's time to continue looking backwards and figure out some things that you should have bet.
Should have bet that.
What do we got here? Yeah, so first thing, not NFL related, I'm going to pull this up. Back in, what was it? It was the first week of the season, so it had to be the end of March, early April rather. I wrote this article on 3 MLB futures that we had in divisions from the Dimers Futures model. Blue Jays win the AL East. We had the Padres in there, the NL West, and Cardinals in the Central. All long shots, all identified with some value by the Dimers model. And it came all the way down to the final game of the season. It required a Yankees collapse and then the Blue Jays to hold off their own collapse. But we cashed a plus 1,300 Blue Jays to win the AL East bet from way back in the first week of the season. You can see here, if you're reading this, we had fair odds for Toronto at just plus 390 with a 20.3% probability. Huge edge. This price was always wrong. It's a competitive division all the time. The Dimers model sussed this out. And if you tailed all 3 of those bets, you're clean on profit because the 1,300 was the longest one of them all. So really good stuff from the futures model, which we have been hammering in episodes here for the NFL. We'll be talking about it more throughout the season. We'll touch on it for the World Series at the end of the show. But yeah, really good stuff on the futures. So don't sleep on those at all. Let's see what else. The first touchdown round robin did not cash as a first touchdown round robin, but it's the second time this season that it cashed as an anytime TD parlay if you played all 5. So there could be a little transitioning that we're seeing there. Maybe we do a little pivot to an anytime TD parlay, or we keep doing the first TD lay and just know that playing that 5-leg anytime TD parlay alongside is a pretty solid safe wager. Wouldn't call that safe wager. Sorry. Pretty solid side wager to make each Sunday, as it's cashed twice at some pretty awesome long shot odds. Other stuff we hit. Greg's College Corner went 2-1, I believe. Very solid start to the season for our man here. We had several money line upsets in the NFL. Steelers, Chiefs, Jaguars all had an edge. All turned out the upset win on Sunday. And Greg and I each had a couple nice call outs for the weekend. I said Dobbs basically had infinite ceiling and upside against the Cowboys. Somehow only got 50 yards and like 5 catches, which is hilarious, but cashed 3 touchdowns, which I put a few bucks on. So that was pretty sweet. Greg,
what was the 3 touchdown payout? I know we were texting about it, but it had to be insane.
Yeah, it was plus 12,500. I put $3 on it. Full transparency. I'm not nuking these things. I put $3, a coffee on it. So it was pretty sweet. I also had an insane lotto that had a Packers defensive special team touchdown that needed it. I was like, man, if Dobbs returns one on a punt return, I might retire. And then Emeka Egbuka came through for you with a 100-yarder, a touchdown, and had the second touchdown broken up it was a really good play. Just great defense all around. So we're helping you find some stuff here on this podcast, and the Dimers model's finding some winners, and we're putting that together to have some pretty good success so far.
Yeah, it's been a fun start this entire first month of doing this show, but last week especially, it felt like a lot of things we called out specifically last week ended up having a lot of traction if you added them to your cards. That's our goal every single week, to help you make the most
Amen.
out of the value that our model shows. Reminder, Dimers Pro is where you can get all of these insights on your own all season long. Dimers Pro is what you need if you're looking for the best futures, if you're looking for just game predictions. We've got the player projections in there as well. We got best bets that you can sort by edge, that you can sort by probability. It's everything you need to make money. Go to Dimers Pro to make sure you subscribe and have access to this anytime you want all season long. We're going to do something new on this program now. It's really a quarter of the way through the NFL season. Feels like the appropriate time to step back, take a broader look at the league, and try and help you find some value with some awards picks. Let's do that.
Yeah, so I'm going to start this off. This is a guy I've talked about a few times on this show. I got some really good value on him during week 1, so that's not there anymore, but I still really like that he's in the mix, and it's Justin Herbert to win MVP. This is, let's be clear, Josh Allen's award to lose. He's at minus 105 on FanDuel, plus 110 on DraftKings. This is just way too early for me to have minus odds on an MVP award. Anything can happen, an injury, a slump, a couple upsets. It doesn't take much to really shift things at the top of the board. Allen's looked excellent. He's, like I said, it's his to lose, but Justin Herbert has just as much of a path, in my opinion. The Chargers are 3-1. They're still on top of the division. They are taking a hit to the O-line, which will hurt Herbert's upside a little bit, but that just might make him stand out even more as the most valuable player on this team. He's got all the upside. His receivers are loaded. Omarion Hampton looks like a true stud running back, so this team should have no problem scoring, moving the ball, as long as Herbert can avoid taking too many sacks, which wouldn't really even be his fault because of the O-line. There's no reason he's not going to be in contention here. He's moved into second place from third. Lamar Jackson has dropped out of that. He's about plus 1,000 now. So I'm sticking with Herbert. My not preseason, but my week 1 pick. Still some value there. I'm riding him out. And pretty much you can't hedge Josh Allen with these odds unless you're putting a sizable bet on it. So I'm sticking with him. If you want a long shot, look at Jalen Hurts. He's plus 1,800, plus 1,900. The team's 4-0. He has 9 total touchdowns, 0 turnovers, low passing volume, which is definitely why he's this low. It's going to be a quarterback award. But if you want the long shot, it's Hurts. But Herbert is my number 1 pick for MVP right now.
I love the Herbert pick. I think holding strong there is the wise move. I also like the Hurts shout. Narratively, Saquon has been a lot less involved this year, and it feels like, it's you're always trying to find the narrative winner, I think, with awards like this. Even if it's not the best player in the league, sometimes it's the guy the media covers the most as the biggest jump or the story of the season. And I feel like the Eagles are so good, it's hard to make any individual player the story. But if they go, 16-1, 15-2 with a quiet year from Saquon, suddenly we're going to look up and have to give the award to somebody on Philly. So I like both of those shouts. I had a Herbert preseason one from our conversations at the beginning of the season, and I'm going to hold strong with that. For my first award pick here, I'm actually going to stay with the Chargers and give you their running back, Omarion Hampton. Offensive Rookie of the Year, 5-1. Now, this isn't the long shot value that I typically like to look for with futures. This is about the low end of the spectrum that I would ever add a future play to my card, unless it's, just plus money for something I think is imminent, 100% likely to happen. Obviously, Omarion Hampton is not guaranteed to win this award. Right now, he is valued as the 3rd favorite behind Emeka Egbuka, who I'm also a fan of, as you've heard on previous episodes. But for Hampton to have twice the payout here, 5-1 as opposed to 2.5-1 with Egbuka, I think that's insane to me. Hampton is also priced more favorably to the better side than Ashton Genty, who, had a huge breakout game this past week, but outside of that, had a really quiet start to the season. Hampton's been solid from the jump, and you add in the fact that with Najee Harris out for the rest of the year, he's going to go from a split carry situation into a bell cow situation. His game logs reflect that. He's been used twice as much in the passing game in the last 2 weeks without Najee Harris since he was before. 7 targets 2 weeks ago, 5 targets and 5 catches this past week. I think when you add his pass catching ability to some breakaway potential, which he showed against the Giants, averaged 11 yards a carry, 128 yards and a touchdown this past week. I just think he's going to get better and better, and the Chargers are going to lean on him more and more as the season goes on. The eye test tells me he's been the best back from this rookie class, and I think as good as Egbuka is, there's arguments that when Evans comes back, we don't know how featured he's always going to be. Is this a flash in the pan? Hampton is not worried about anybody behind him. If anything, he's only going to increase his usage as the season goes on. I think 5-1 is really good value for a guy that I think could honestly end up a favorite by mid-season with this award.
Completely agree with you there. And from an RB perspective alone, there's no reason Jonty should be in front of him. He has one good game against a bad team, and it's the draft capital, which we know for a fact comes into play here. There's extra narrative and stuff at play at work here. I love your pick. I'll definitely be on this with you. Might do a little round robin here with Hampton and a couple of these other awards for some long shot value, which is a thing I do love to do preseason and once or twice throughout the year to try to get a couple awards all in one. All right, my next one, somewhat sticking with the theme and going offensive and a running back. My offensive player of the year pick is not someone I would have thought to even look at ahead of the season, and one that probably most people aren't looking at now, but James Cook of the Buffalo Bills has himself a nice little case here, in my opinion. To be transparent, Puka is still my pick, like who I believe is going to win and should win the award, but his value is long gone. I got him at like plus 1,600. He's plus 260 and the favorite. So again, if you're comfortable taking an awards play this early in the season at odds that short, go ahead and back Puka. He's my guy, but you're looking for the value. You want the long shot. James Cook, man, over 100 total yards in each game. He's on pace for 1,700 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns so far through 4 games. Bijan's at plus 500 with 2 touchdowns, though he does have almost 600 yards. But he's on I would call a mid-tier team at best compared to James Cook, who's on the best team in the NFL right now. So Josh Allen's always going to, take away maybe from some of his usage, but it's not hurting him so far. He's fine in the end zone. He's getting the volume. He's getting the yards. Realistically, if the Bills are practically undefeated or remain as a number 1 seed all season long, this price should just naturally get smaller because the other guys are going to kind of filter out. And you could just do a lot worse from a long shot value in week 4 or 5. I do think Cook's got to have some monster games. He needs like a 2 touchdown, 150-yard, 3 touchdown game to really put a statement and plant a flag here. But I mean, almost 20-1 odds, 5 touchdowns for the guy. Yeah. Give me James Cook for a little dark horse offensive player of the year.
I like the pick. I see all the reasoning behind it. He's been so stellar to start the season that it's hard to argue against this whatsoever. I also want to give you props, and we should mention this. 19-1 on FanDuel. Make sure you get it on FanDuel because it's 15-1 at DraftKings. Certainly just showing some pricing value there, the starting point. So I am going to stick in a similar range here for the same award and just give out a different candidate I like. And yeah, it's a little homery, but I think there's a narrative here. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 15-1 for Offensive Player of the Year. He has been better this season than he has been throughout his career, which is crazy. And yes, it's been a hot start, but I'm telling you from watching every minute of these Detroit games, the only major difference between the previous regime's Ben Johnson trick play offense versus this new look offense under John Morton is that they don't get as cute in the red zone. I mean, if you remember it, they were all over. If you had red zone on your TV the last 3 years, they would be throwing passes to offensive linemen, reverses, all these cute things that you had no idea how to stop. And I'm telling you from experience, as good as Amon-Ra was, he was never the biggest end zone finding threat. Now he is. He has 6 touchdowns through 4 games. And when they get down there, they don't even look in the direction of anybody else. Jameson Williams had a couple drops last week. Laporta has not found the end zone once this year yet. Yes, they still like to run the ball, but if they get cute on 3rd down, or if they struggle trying to pound it through with Montgomery a couple times at the goal line, they've gone straight to Amon-Ra St. Brown every single time. In fact, I think 5 of his 6 touchdowns are like 3-yard receptions where they just dial up a little out route at the goal line. There's a chance that he stacks up some crazy touchdown numbers this year. And if the Lions do end up winning the NFC North, remaining in contention for a top 2 seed in the NFC playoffs, I think he will have the narrative story behind him that he just had a career year without the offensive coordinator that everyone gave credit for how good he was up until this year. It looks like we're trending that way at 15-1. I mean, this is 5 or 6 times the value that you would get betting Puka Nacua, who obviously deserves to be the favorite right now. But man, if St. Brown's touchdown track holds up through the rest of the season, I think he's going to be in contention by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, 6 touchdowns through 4 games. That's got to be pace for over 20. Well, over 20 on the year. So you're talking serious offensive production, and you can't ignore that type of output in an award like this, regardless of who else is up there. I mean, just look at the touchdown equity is 3 times what Puka has. So, and he's a massive favorite. Granted, he's got 120 yards in every single game, but no reason this can't tighten up. And at 15-1, I'm with you right there.
Love it. All right. Hopefully you like our picks, and maybe you can add some of these to your cards. Always fun to get a couple futures in on the individual side in NFL season. I liked your idea to round robin those as well. If anyone does do that, by the way, let us know. Jump in the Discord and send us a ticket or something. Give us a heads up so that we know who to shout out at the end of the season if any of these hit as the year goes on. But from more of an unconventional way to bet NFL back to our typical favorite way to bet NFL, it's time for our 3 favorite week 5 against the spread picks.
The early edge.
Another winning week last week, Dave. Tell the people about it.
Yeah, spreads are rolling overall so far through the season. Went 9-7 in week 4, so we're up to 36-28 on the year. Just 1 week under 500 last week, and I believe that was only 1 game under. So, if you're betting them straight, you got a little juice on the spread, so you probably not crushing the units. But if you're mixing in a few parlays here, playing the top 5s, using them in your pick'ems, you're looking in a good spot. There's a lot of 50-50 splits today in our early week predictions. Plus, it's a shorter week with our first teams on bye. So we're just going to look at the top 3 here. I'll pull them up, and we'll dive into these a little bit. Overall, number 1 is Browns plus 4.5 versus the Vikings at a massive 67.7%. This game's in London. The Vikings' second game of their road trip overseas. Vikings looked pretty much an entire mess that whole game. They did make it interesting down the stretch, but they were it's kind of the second time, third time maybe this season we've seen a team look excellent. Kind of with Jake Browning, and then the next week just completely go full pumpkin mode, and that's pretty much what Carson Wentz did. I don't know if it was the overseas, the just Carson Wentz-ness of his play, but the Browns have shown they can beat a good team in the right scenario, and this might just be that scenario. You're getting a Vikings team stuck overseas. Granted, they've got a little time to adjust to that now, seeing as it's their second week doing so. But I would really not want to face this Browns defense coming off last week's 6-sack, 2 INT game for Wentz. He's kind of a guy who gets the yips a bit, if things are bad and breaking down, he doesn't kind of go through the progressions and the motions. He'll yeet a ball. He had one of the funniest interceptions we've ever seen in NFL history a couple years ago in a scenario like that. So it's definitely going to be a formidable test for Minnesota. The Browns probably hinge on Flacco moving the ball successfully. Their receivers just took a hit with Cedric Tillman got hurt. I believe. So Isaiah Bond is probably going to slot in as that wide receiver too. Possible waiver wire pickup there. But we just saw a 40-year-old quarterback get the job done against this Vikings team overseas. So why not in back-to-back weeks?
I buy it. Yeah, I think Cleveland's just very good. That's my only commentary on this. Now, maybe not the right time for me to say that because Detroit did separate big time in the second half, and Flacco threw a couple picks, so that made that score a little more lopsided than it is. But I buy that this defense is for real. Like, you better have
Absolutely.
explosive weapons everywhere to exploit this Cleveland team. Even Detroit was stifled by it early in that game. But just based on the eye test, Minnesota is surviving right now. That's a team and a franchise that I really like to bet. But I think they are kind of hoping JJ McCarthy comes back more than you would think off of last week. Probably would do them well to get back in the States, honestly. I don't think any team likes to be stuck overseas as a losing streak unfolds. And that Cleveland defense is one of the last things I would see while still mired in an overseas trip. So +4.5, I'm in agreement with this. This would be on my card even without it being the model's favorite play of the week, but it's good to see that it's there. Next up is a team that you and I have loved to bet this year, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so the Bucks +3.5 at the Seahawks. This is 56.5%. Bucks have been almost a total ATM from the model, barring last week when they lost against the Eagles, but they had a shot there at the end. Bit of a tale of two halves for both of these teams last week, although they were the opposite result. A sluggish start for the Bucks saw them end up in striking distance at the end of the game, almost tying it up, forcing overtime or at least a last-ditch attempt. And the Seahawks coughed up a 14-point lead and had to walk it off with a field goal against the Cardinals. Granted, that was Thursday Night Football silliness, division rival, kind of to be expected, but they certainly looked like a team struggling to move the ball in the second half compared to the first. The Bucks were the complete opposite. They couldn't do anything to start that game and then almost seemed unstoppable in the second half. And the Eagles scored, I think, 3 points until they finally put the nail in the coffin and ended that thing. This is my favorite play of these three bets that we're talking about here by far. They're pretty evenly matched teams, I think you would say, but there's more explosiveness on offense for the Bucks, I think, just in terms of ability. Ken Walker doesn't look explosive, but Bucky Irving's broken several big plays this year. Buka, we already know what he can do. Godwin should be another week healthier. And while we were standing Torrey Horton all day last week, that Seahawks offense did not have much in the way of a second pass catcher behind JSN. And he took a while to get going as well. So, yeah, I'm going to take the Bucks here. With the model, I'm almost always going to side with the underdog in a closely matched game because I think they have that chance at the upset at the end. If anything, they come in with a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder, and you get the key number here right outside the +3. So, field goal covers this. Yeah, really, really in line with this one from the model.
Yep, catching just over a field goal. It's a must play for me. Tampa has been stellar this season. Seattle's been hit or miss. Yeah, to me, two teams on a neutral. I would expect Tampa to be favored by a field goal on a neutral. Do I think home field is worth 6 points? No. Now, maybe I'm underestimating Seattle a little bit. Maybe part of this is the injury status of Mike Evans, the top target for Tampa. But Buka has proven that they're not really going to skip a beat in that regard as long as he's here. So I stand in alignment with our first two picks here. The third one, I may need some convincing from you, but that's why you're here, Dave. It's Jacksonville +3.5 against Kansas City.
Yeah, so this is also tied for a top spread with the Bucks, 56.5%. Well, I mean, the Chiefs, they looked like the Chiefs finally this season. Mahomes had 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. Their running game was, again, inefficient, but Pacheco managed his best game on just 7 carries, tallying 5 yards per carry. Got in the end zone on a pass, which I'm sure he really, really needed for his own mental game. But the Jags, that's a tenacious team we've seen so far. They made a nightmare for the 49ers this past Sunday. They were relentless and did not let them get away with anything. The Chiefs do get a big advantage over San Francisco as a matchup as far as injuries are concerned. They're a lot healthier than the Niners. Xavier Worthy is back and was straight into wide receiver one business. So the league might want to be on notice in that regard. But the Jags have not been a pushover. They've got the 5th ranked defense by points per game, a top 6 rushing defense, 0 touchdowns allowed to running backs, which is bad news for Kansas City, who can't really get those very easily. The damage is going to have to be done through the air for Kansas City, which is why Worthy's return and immediate production last week bodes really well for them. It's going to be a tough matchup, I think, for the Jags, given the Chiefs' kind of revitalized energy here, but the Chiefs haven't been world beaters this year, and the Jags have looked pretty formidable. So I'll probably side with the model for this pick, at least in my pick'ems. When it comes to a wager, I might see if there's something else I like. Maybe even see what the money line upset is if I want to get some better value there on the Jags. Let's see what the odds look like compared to the Bucs at the same spread in what should be a more winnable game. So if you're going to get comparable odds on the Bucs and the Jaguars for an upset here, you probably don't want to touch it. But if you're going to get a much better price on the Jags compared to the Bucs, who have the same spread also on the road, it's probably maybe worth a bit more of a look. But that's just kind of my own little personal feelings. The model's been pretty good with its strong leans. I think it's been pretty accurate on the Jaguars so far. However, I think the whole league might want to be on a little bit of notice against the Chiefs after last week.
Yeah, it has been wise, even with my hesitation to use a word before you gave the pitch here. It has been wise to just blindly take the model's best bets and bet them against the spread. So the numbers speak for themselves there. I certainly don't want to argue against this by any means. I think part of what would pitch me into Jacksonville here might be the angle that part of the Chiefs' resurgence, although they got Xavier Worthy back, was how banged up Baltimore is defensively right now. I mean, that grades out as one of the worst defenses in the league. It may not be as impressive as it felt last week to see the Kansas City offense clicking. The Jags defense has been legit. 5th ranked defense by points per game. As you mentioned, they're not going to get anything going on the ground. So, if you buy that angle, I think catching a field goal, once again, a good number. You could convince me, but one of my number one Bible rules is don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I've done it a couple times and won thanks to the model already this year, but I feel like this might be pushing my personal luck just a little bit too far. We shall see. Reminder that we do this every single week. You will get our early look at our Against the Spread picks on the Tuesday episode of the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast. We do 2 episodes of this a week as well. And make sure you like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a comment for us. Let us know how we're doing. All of that helps us with the algorithm. All of that helps us continue to bring this show to you. We'll take a closer look in depth at some same game parlays and some final additions to our Week 5 card on the Thursday episode. But for now, we also want to take a quick look at some early NFL touchdown values for Week 5. What do we got here, Dave?
Yeah, not something we've done on Tuesdays yet, but since we have a few lighter spreads here and there's a lot of 50-50 stuff with the bye weeks, I thought we'd just take a quick look at some TD value here. So I'll pull up our top 3. These are probabilities with an edge, so not our 3 overall scorers, but are out of all the value plays on site. These are the 3 highest. Pretty stud names right here. If you are looking for guys who like to score with value, Christian McCaffrey, J.K. Dobbins, and the aforementioned Emeka Egbuka, pretty good stuff. 44.2% for Egbuka, 48.1% for Dobbins, and 62.5% for McCaffrey at pretty reasonable price of -135. So if you're looking for early touchdown value, all 3 of these guys should be on your radar. We have a bunch more on site right now. I will also tease that at least one of these guys has multi-touchdown value. There are a couple multi-touchdown value bets on site. You definitely want to give those a look. You won't find more than probably 2, 3, 4, or 5 any given week. However, the odds are often quite long, and very small lunch money plays spread across could turn a nice little profit. For example, this past week we had 5 or 6 of those bets. And one of them was Woody Marks, 2 touchdowns, plus 5,500 on Bet365. So you could have put $1 or $2, whatever, all across and you would have walked away with some nice little profit with Woody Marks, who will be touched on later in this episode, getting in the end zone twice. So CMC, Dobbins, Agbuka, all touchdown value in week 5.
Love it. All right. Thank you, Dave. Good to see my guy Easy E, Emeka Egbuka, back on screen. He's been crushing this year. Reminder, Dimers Pro. That's where you get these insights every single week. If you want the early look against the spread, if you want the player props of value every single week, Dimers Pro will give you all of that as soon as it comes out, thanks to our model. Let's get to some fantasy talk. It's time for our weekly waiver wire.
The Fantasy Waiver Wire.
Marks,
Cool.
just got a mention from you, and it sounds like we're going right back to him.
Yep, we sure are. He is without a doubt the number one ad you have to make this week. Let me pull up my guys here. Oh, sorry, wrong image there. So we'll start with my number one overall. As I mentioned, it's Woody Marks. Before we go by position with a couple extra pickups, Woody Marks, 32% rostered. He should be 100% rostered after this week. I stashed him 2 weeks ago. Hadn't played him until this weekend when I lost Bill Merritt to basically lack of production, and I had a feeling he was going to get that way after not practicing, so I fired up Woody. Well, 25 PPR points later, I'm looking pretty good there. He probably just took the job from Nick Chubb, and if not, he at least planted his flag with the 2 TD performance. He outsnapped Chubb 40-30, and most notably, that grew as the game went on. He got more and more of a role as they saw what he was doing. He's projected for 10.5 PPR points this week, 38.7 rushing yards, and a 38.6 anytime TD percentage against the Ravens, which honestly feels a little conservative because they have one of the worst rushing defenses, maybe the worst rushing defense in the NFL. The model probably isn't trying to go full Woody after just seeing what he did in his first real opportunity with the workload. But I would not be surprised from just a observational standpoint to see Woody Marks run away with this job in the next coming weeks. His floor should certainly look something like 10 to 12 touches with at least 20 in both sides of the game as an upside. Next up, Wan'Dale Robinson. Look, the ball has to go somewhere without Malik Neighbors. He's the de facto wide receiver 1 here. You probably also want to look at Darius Slayton, though we had him projected for 5 points lower, so I'm focusing on the top guy. Robinson's rostered in 49% of Yahoo leagues, so he should be out there in at least some competitive leagues. That's 12 team makeup, so you should be able to find him. He still drew 5 targets in 3 or 4 games this season with Neighbors. He is coming off like his worst game so far, but it was Jackson Dart's first game. Pretty predictably run heavy. Neighbors getting hurt. I wouldn't read too much into the game plan from this one, and would look just further ahead as the logical guy who's going to be funneling targets from Jackson Dart. We project him for 13.2 PPR points, 54.7 receiving yards, and a 30.5% anytime TD probability. And just one tight end this week. I mean, come on, Darren Waller, fresh off 2 touchdowns in limited action in his debut, only 8% rostered in Yahoo leagues. The team just lost Tyreek Hill, too. It was already looking Waller's way before that happened. He should be playing full snaps moving forward. He should have a bigger role here. Tight end is a wasteland, as we all know. We're hitting bye weeks where guys are going to be unavailable, and the waiver wire pool is going to be smaller than ever. If you are in need of a tight end or simply have the roster space to add another, go with Darren Waller, put in your claim. We project him for 6.7 PPR points this week, 28.6 receiving yards, and a 17.6% anytime TD percentage. Wouldn't be surprised to see that go up a little more once your model makes some more adjustments, accounting for the complete loss of Tyreek Hill. And I got a couple more names here. However, they are on bye this week, so they won't help you this week, but they may not be available come next week. And realistically, they should be rostered, so there's never a bad time to stash a guy. One of those is Kenneth Gainwell, Steelers running back. He's 23% rostered. Steelers are on bye, as I mentioned, but he may not be there after the bye. Someone's going to pick him up, so if you don't, he won't be there when you need him. 2 touchdowns and over 130 total yards, including 6 receptions in Dublin. Best game by a Steelers back this year. Warren's banged up and questionable, though he's got the bye to heal up. You still probably want to have Gainwell on your roster. Running backs get hurt all the time, and it's often just who's producing. And Kenneth Gainwell's done that the best so far. And a guy we talked about earlier, but Romeo Doubs, 40% rostered, coming off a 3-touchdown performance. You'll have to live with the high upside, low floor that comes with a guy like Doubs with his roughly 5 targets per game. But we've talked about his big playability. We've seen his big playability. Matthew Golden's 82% rostered off of his draft capital and has 0 touchdowns. So Doubs should not be on the waiver wire. Put him on your roster. Play him when you need him, and just be aware that you're probably getting 20 or 2 points from the guy.
the prototypical boomer bust guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fantasy. It just is. But you want a guy who's, in a sense, a top 2 target on the Packers. But.
Yeah. And I think just strategically, this is how I run my fantasy teams. But, if I'm streaming a guy, if I'm trying to bring a guy in just for a week to fill in for a buy or something, I would rather go big, go boomer bust than bring in the guy that's just going to get you 6 points. Like the off chance of Romeo Doubs getting you 3 touchdowns the 1 week you start him makes him a lot more appealing than alternatives that you can find from the waiver wire scrap bin. So you're always looking for the huge play potential. Doubs very clearly has that. He's one of our favorites on this program. So you heard the pitch. Thank you as always, Dave. 5 very good names to get on your radar there if you are a fantasy football player. Reminder that the nature of this waiver wire and fantasy football in general is that we're doing it on Tuesdays so that you have a very quick turnaround to actually act on this, depending on your fantasy league's rules. So we know there's not a ton of shelf life here, but if you listen to this program every Tuesday, right when the episode comes out, hopefully you do have enough time to lock in some of these plays. And at minimum, hopefully you can learn some lessons from this segment on an ongoing basis that could apply to future weeks. We are going to pivot to college next. You referenced it earlier in the show. It's been a hot start to my college corner, and I've got 3 more plays for you this week.
College Corner.
For my first trick, I feel like I'm a magician on stage right now. Let's go with Vanderbilt plus 11 against Alabama. Now, I got it at 11. It looks like it's already down to 10.5, as you can see in front of you. And these are the 3 best bets that we are going to speak to. But let me just give you the pitch on Vanderbilt quickly. First of all, Diego Pavia, dog. This is one of the most fun quarterbacks in all of college football. He's a big game guy, and he will let you hear about it. He spent all offseason screaming to anyone who would listen that Vanderbilt is a serious contender in this sport, that he's back to win a championship, and we all laughed him off the podium. Well, Vanderbilt is now 5-0 with a huge win over South Carolina that they stomped them by. 31-7 was the score in that game. They beat Virginia Tech by 24. His last 2 weeks, Pavia has led this offense to 125 points. They're 16th in the polls. I mean, they are on track to make a college football playoff appearance, and I think you've got to buy it at this point. Pavia has the reputation of this big primetime underdog guy, and he just relishes opportunities like this against Alabama. Now, Alabama is still Alabama, as they showed against Georgia, but let's spot bet for just a moment here. What a come down spot this is. Alabama off the high of going on the road and eking out an ugly win over Georgia, feeling like they're back on top of the college football world against probably the best underdog big game quarterback in the entire sport. The fact that you can get, again, a key number, a touchdown and a field goal here, it's just the right side of the bet. And I rarely say that, but this is one of those ones I'm so happy to put on my card and live with the result. Our model agrees, a 56% probability, a 4.5% edge. That's enough for me. And if you want to get wild, I would personally even sprinkle a little Vanderbilt to win this game. We've seen Alabama at their best against Georgia. It was impressive. We've seen them at their worst when they got blitzed by a Florida State team that just lost to Virginia. They are not unbeatable, and Diego Pavia can beat anybody in the sport. I'll be quicker on my next two, but I was just obligated to give an impassioned plea for my favorite play of the week here.
Of course.
Michigan State plus 10.5 is next. They are taking on Nebraska here. Big spot as well in terms of why do we like this one. Michigan State off a bye week here. Now, I think Jonathan Smith still has a lot to prove, but his offense has taken a huge step forward in year 2 of his regime at Michigan State. Aiden Childs has been absolutely spectacular. I think this qualifies as a quote-unquote big game for both sides. Nebraska under Matt Rule has not been good in big games. Look no further than that Michigan loss just a couple weeks ago. This is a program that you typically like to fade in spots like this, let alone when the opponent has had 13 days to prep. I think Michigan State showed some good things on the road in their last game against USC. Didn't win the game, but got the cover in the second half there. 10.5 is too many points for two teams I think are pretty evenly matched on paper here. And then lastly, Boise State, Notre Dame, fun one here. Just take the over 64.5. As you see, pretty sizable probability that this one lands as a win according to the model. Both these offenses have been absolutely on fire this season. Notre Dame, I mean, in high-profile games, this has not been an easy schedule by any means for Notre Dame. They're only 2-2, but you go through it: 56 points against Arkansas, 56 against Purdue, 40 against Texas A&M in a loss. I mean, their games have been played in the 70s or upward most times this season. You flip and look at Boise State. Boise State has some firepower as well. This is not a team that lost Ashton Genty and has no answers anymore. Maddox Madsen is a quarterback that can pop off for 300-yard passing games. And again, they've gone for 47 or more points on their own in the last 3 weeks, albeit against lesser opponents. But these are two teams that I think philosophically have approached games this season saying we want to win by outscoring you. There's a lot of firepower on both sides. I think 64.5 to me is about a touchdown too low from where I would have expected this line to be. And I think our model agrees, giving that a 54% probability. As Dave mentioned earlier in the show, 2-1 last week with the College Corner. We've had a bunch of winning weeks with this segment. We're looking to keep it rolling. And those are our 3 favorites of the week.
As always, I'll be tailing alongside you, Greg. And as you mentioned, 9.1% edge on the Vanderbilt upset. So check that out on Dimers. Get your value if you think they are live for that. Am I correct in remembering they beat Bama last year? It was like a pretty surprise, right? Kind of what the hell?
It was Pavia's big welcome to the world moment. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean,
like I said,
the come down spot. It's kind of all lining up.
He's just the last guy you want to see. And it sounds crazy, but there's some Money Manziel to Pavia in the way he plays. And, that's another quarterback that beat Alabama in college years ago. So, hey, we'll see. We'll see if we're right next week when we revisit this College Corner. We're jumping around sports here, but that's the beauty of the Dimers model. You can get value in anything you are looking to bet. And now that the Ryder Cup has wrapped, our PGA model is back. We've got the Sanderson Farms Championship up next. Take us through it, Dave. What do we got?
Sanderson Farms Championship, folks. So like we said, we're back after the Ryder Cup, which is pretty exciting. We got several FedEx Cup fall events coming up. We cashed Tommy Fleetwood at plus 1,400 to end the Tour Championship. That was right before this podcast launched, so you didn't get it on here, but you got it on dimers.com. But we cashed Ben Griffin's ladder and as a winner without Scotty Scheffler at the Procore Championship, which we did talk about on here. So the model's on a very strong golf run to both end the season and begin FedEx Cup fall. We're going to Country Club of Jackson in Mississippi for the Sanderson Farms Championship. These names are a bit of a mouthful sometimes. We got Akshay Bhatia as the top overall projected winner. He's both the sportsbook favorite and the model's favorite. So we're going to be looking at the value on him as well as a couple other guys. He's one of the top names in this entire field and should be lined up for a pretty good weekend, as the key stats for success here are strokes gained, approach and putting, birdie or better percentage, and par 5 scoring, which kind of go hand in hand there, and driving distance. You want guys who can bomb the ball. Not worried so much about accuracy because this course actually plays as one of the easiest on tour. It's ranked the 8th easiest. Last year, it played as the easiest course. There are minimal hazards. The rough isn't bad, and it's very favorable for long hitters and strong putters. So, Batia, plus 2,000 on DraftKings. He's got 4 top 10s and 10 top 25s this year. He's finished top 30 in 6 events since June, with 1 withdrawal in that span. On a run of T6, T26, T13, and T11 through FedEx Cup and the fall event at the ProCore Championship. So he's on a really nice form, probably one of his better stretches of the season. He doesn't quite match the driver profile. He's kind of low ranked on distance, but he's 30th on tour and putting, 10th on approach, 10th in birdies or better. He can score. He can shorten the greens up pretty nicely. His fair odds would be plus 1,500. So you're getting pretty solid value as well on a ladder with his top 20 sitting at even money and 49.4% probability. Batia is one of my favorite golfers to bet, though he can be a little aggravating. He sometimes looks like the next coming of Tiger Woods, and other times looks like he should get back on the Corn Ferry Tour and maybe not play with the big guys. But he's in a great position here, some really good value, and he's a lefty, and it's always fun to bet on the lefties. You go down just a little bit further, you see Matt Kuchar, plus 7,500 on FanDuel. He's a veteran that the models like to from time to time. He's only got 1 top 10 in 14 events this year. That was at the John Deere Classic in July. But he is coming off a T13 at the ProCore Championship to kick off FedEx Cup fall. He's got a great putter, ranks 20th overall in strokes gained against the field, and he's slightly above average on his approach. Pretty poor driving distance, but he's just outside the top 40 in accuracy, so he may have a little offset there. He's a long shot, but his fair odds of plus 3,500 are very different from his plus 7,500 price at FanDuel. So he's very much worth a light sprinkle. Ladder play, you're not getting a ton of value on him. We looked in that. If you want to look in some more, just fire up these predictions and click around. You can check him out for top 5, top 10, top 20, all right up here. So you can find some opportunities there as well. One more guy we'll take a look at is Andrew Putnam. Mega long shot here, plus 10,000 on FanDuel. He's entering this in pretty rough form, 4 missed cuts and a withdrawal in 5 of his past 8 events. However, in the other 3 that he didn't miss the cut or withdraw, he finished T6, T8, and T11. So he's about as volatile as it comes. Like the other guys, he's not a great driver for distance, but he's the 6th most accurate. And with fewer hazards, that's not a big spike in that advantage, but it should offset his distance issues a little bit. He ranks 34th on approach, 14th in putting, and 13th in scoring average. And it really shines on par 4s. Not so much on par 5s, but he's good at chipping down and getting his score a little lower. Fair odds here would be just plus 4,450 for some more huge value. You're talking double the odds here just by getting him at FanDuel at this price. $2 wins you, I think, 200 on this, so you don't have to go crazy to get some upside on a guy like Andrew Putnam. A couple other guys that I just personally like that aren't necessarily loved by the model, but they'll be on my radar are Jesper Svensson at plus 8,000 and Nikolai Højgaard at plus 4,000. They both have really, really strong drivers and very good putting. I believe Svensson is 3rd and Højgaard's 4th in driving distance. So they'll have some very short holes to work with here and should give them some opportunities to chip away and probably find themselves in the mix at the end. Again, we've got these projections on site for the full tournament. They update after every round. We also have a really cool head-to-head predictor tool, so you can mix up some golfers, simulate their chances of beating one another, and you can use that for some matchups, 3 balls, and group play markets as well. We'll be riding these plays out and checking in on some updates throughout the week on social and on the Dimers website. So please check these out, and good luck with whoever you tail at the Sanderson Farms Championship.
Love it. Thank you for all of that. My only 2 cents to add to this, with Batia being the model's favorite play here, value-wise, and the favorite, feels like a good reminder that with golf and even like tennis tournaments, some of these other sports where there's an individual winner crowned out of 60 plus participants, when you get an event where the best in the world are out for whatever reason, sometimes it is a really good time to just bet the best player in the field. I mean, how many times do we come here like Scotty might win this tournament? He's just clearly the best, and his odds are like 4-1, and there's no value. Getting 20-1 for the favorite, it may feel weird. It sometimes feels like a sucker bet to just jump on the favorite. But from my experience in recent years, and even just from betting the Dimers models bets from recent years, that's a situation where you can often get the most value. It is never a bad thing to bet statistically the best player in the field at 20-1 odds for something like this. So just my 2 cents to add why, if you're looking at that, like, well, does the model just give you the best player? No, Dave gave you a bunch of different ways you could bet what the model tells you to bet there. But I kept coming back to Batia at 20-1. Like, sometimes it's obvious and sitting right there. I think that's my favorite play for this tournament. So thank you as always for that, Dimers Pro, where you can get your PGA predictions all year long as we turn the page to a new PGA Tour season. We mentioned at the top of the show that the MLB playoffs are now underway. Let's talk through some World Series predictions here. We hit some futures way back at the beginning of the year, and there's still time to jump on board the correct bandwagon here. What does the model say?
Yeah, so let's just take a quick look at the board. We're not going to do too much into this. I mean, by the time most of you guys are watching this, unless you're literally hot on our heels, the postseason will have started. But you could probably still steal some value depending on what happens in these first games anyway. So let's just take a quick look here. Dimers top 3, Phillies 15.4%, Mariners and Dodgers split at 13.0%. I'm a bit surprised to see the Mariners this high, not just from the model, but on the odds. Would not have pegged them to be above the Yankees, Brewers, Blue Jays. Those teams have all looked really good. No shade to the Mariners or anything, but their pitching's not the talk of the town. I'm just a little surprised to see them this high, and the model's in agreement, which is really good. If you're a Seattle guy, if you're a Cal Raleigh stan, you'd be probably pretty happy to see where they rank in the model and on the odds. Our best value here, the Blue Jays are about fair, 11.3%, 800. That's pretty much spot on. So you're not losing anything getting them there. Just behind the Dodgers too, who you'd probably say are a class above the Blue Jays, yet you're getting very similar output at a better price. Cubs are very slim value here, 6.5% plus 1,500. They'd be fair at plus 1,450, so almost spot on, but a little edge there. Cubs have looked pretty good. They probably could have won that division if they tightened things up in the middle of the season. Maybe found themselves with a bye. If they, I think they could have. If they beat the Brewers, they should have had a bye. So I'd be a little worried about anyone facing the Cubs. They seem to turn things around at the end after a pretty rough slump for PCA and Kyle Tucker in the midsummer. And then all the way down here, who are about to start their game against Greg's Tigers, the Guardians with a value at 3.7%, the hottest team in baseball, plus 3,000 to win the World Series, fair at plus 2,600. Greg, any thoughts on who's winning the World Series here?
You know, I really don't feel like I have a great pulse on it. Part of that is just because I've been watching my first place Detroit Tigers have the greatest end of regular season collapse in recent memory. So I think baseball is such a momentum-based sport. We saw that insane run from the Brewers earlier this season in a positive way. Feels like Cleveland's on a similar run right now. But I don't think any of those teams are actually anywhere near the best team in baseball. And it's hard for me, you get to you got to win a 4-game stretch out of 7 games. It's hard for me to not bet on the most talented teams, the teams with the best pitching staff. To me, that's where you find the value. And I think these teams are all pretty appropriately priced. If I was going to jump on one of these long shots, I do buy that Cleveland's a little bit of a team of destiny, and that hurts my heart to say it, but them kind of having the emotional advantage of the comeback already into first place over Detroit. They're staring up at Detroit for the wild card round right now. If they're able to take care of business in these first 2 games against Detroit, I would really feel good about their chances to just carry on to that momentum. So 30-1, which you can get at the books, 26-1 is what we have fair value. That's probably my favorite long shot play. But again, that might be an emotional hedge against my heart here, Dave.
No, I like that. We always see one of these dark horse teams make their way through. It was the Diamondbacks in the World Series a couple years ago. And like you said, they feel like the team of destiny. They're hot. These odds are crazy. You can put a couple bucks on them. If they win the series, this is probably going to half of this. And I think the path in the American League is just a lot more open. You don't have to run into the Brewers or Dodgers until the World Series. Everybody in the American League has shown a propensity for collapse lately, and that opens it up for anybody. And for the most part, baseball is one of those leagues where I feel like if you're in the postseason, like you're made for the World Series. You're ready. It's not, I don't know. The NFL feels kind of like, especially with the expansion, those last couple teams that get in are they really postseason quality teams? That doesn't really happen in baseball. If you made it, you're good. It's a long season, the war of attrition, and the Guardians won that. So why not win it all? That's some good value. Yep,
100%. All right. Well, we will have more episodes of the show as the MLB playoffs roll on. So hopefully we'll be able to update you live as the model updates in real time. We can give you some updates on if there is any value on times to jump on certain teams in this playoff run. For now, though, we've just got a few more things to look at in our closing segments.
What's on Dimers this week?
All right. Got to close it out here. WNBA finals begin this week. The end of the second round is today. Aces versus Fever. All 3 of our WNBA futures are in play from our season or mid-season article. If the Aces win game 5, we'll have a plus 2,000 versus plus 1,600 futures clash with a guaranteed winner coming out on the other side. We already have a guaranteed winner because all 3 teams left are from the same article on Dimers, which is pretty sweet. I'm leaning for the Mercury here. I've just kind of been on them all season. They've been a team that made some money for me betting regular season games, so I'm hoping they pull that out. As mentioned, it's the MLB postseason. We've got World Series predictions. We'll have game-by-game predictions, our player projections. All the stuff we usually have is up and waiting for you for the postseason. Updated PGA predictions after every round. You'll find the latest probabilities with the current leaderboard, some extra value, and possibly extra opportunities in the middle of the tournament. One of my favorite ways to bet on golf is middle of the tournament, so you get a little bit more data points to use when you're doing that. So be sure to check those out. That model updates every evening after the round concludes, barring any delays or suspensions. So be sure to be on dimers.com all week long, and you will find all our playoff, NFL, and PGA goodies for the week.
Lots of sports you can tap into right now, both as a fan and a sports bettor. And Dimers Pro, that's the model you need. Live updates for so that you can take advantage at the right moment for all of these sports. This was a jam-packed episode, but a fun one. Being able to jump around sports is fun at this time of year. So, Dave, I appreciate you taking us through all of it. Reminder, show us some love on this show. If you're enjoying this, let us know about it. Let us hear you in the Dimers Discord. Let us hear from you on anywhere you're seeing this, actually on the YouTube channel. Leave a comment. If you could rate us where you get your podcast, that would be fantastic as well. We're having a fun time doing this. We hope you're having a fun time following along with us. We will be back on Thursday with our final Week 5 NFL cards and plenty more for you. Remember to gamble responsibly, and we'll see you on Thursday.